Hey everyone, Jordan here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the O11 Vision from Lian Li. This is a showcase style PC with a columnist design and 3 tempered glass panels so you can really show off the parts that are in your system. I'm looking forward to this one, so let me get it unboxed and we'll take a look. So first of all, some of the thickest padding that I've ever seen on a case. That is certainly going to protect this thing. I would expect so as well with 3 tempered glass panels. And we've got our manual. This case is also a collaboration with PC Master Race. You've also got cardboard protectors on the edges as well, so very happy with this padding. Good job, Lian Li. And here we have the O11 Vision. So as you can see, I've got the white one. This was kindly sent to me by Overclockers UK. The white one's currently £129.95, a little bit more expensive to produce the white ones. And then the black case with a slight tint to the glass is £124.99. And you can also get a chrome version for the same price, which is like a mirrored style glass. Basically, when the computer's off, you won't be able to see into it. Then any RGB that you've got will light the system up and shine out. I originally was going to go for that one, but it looked really hard after I thought about it to light it up. I would usually put some white strips in like the front and then along the top, but being that this is 3 panels of glass, there's nowhere for them to go without being visible. Might be able to get one in the back, but again, it'll be easily seen. So I'm glad I went for the white one. It seems to be a lot easier to work in. So let's have a look around the case itself. On the top, obviously a big piece of glass. We've also got some little rubber protection pads as well. So in shipping, the glasses are going to contact each other and potentially cause some damage. This will come off with a couple of thumb screws. We can easily slide this out, obviously remove that little bit of rubber. Then if I turn this over, you can see this little latch. That then connects into this little part on the left of the case, a little plastic piece. That then adds 35 kilograms of rigidity to the case, either from top down or side on pressure. So incredible that they've managed to add that kind of rigidity from that little piece, especially with 3 pieces of glass. So looking at the front of the case, we've got our power button. You can press this from either side to turn the system on. We've also got a little reset button on the right hand side there too. At the bottom of the case, built into the feet, we've got our front I/O. So we've got a headphone microphone combi jack. There's also a USB Type-C 3.2 Gen 2. I've also got 2 USB 3 ports. Underneath the case, we've got some nice rubber pads on the feet. These are also 30mm high, so you're going to get a nice lot of space for some fresh air to be drawn in from underneath. There's a dust filter as well, but I'll talk to you about that when we get to the front. So onto the rear of the case, we've got support for an additional fan. You can actually do 2 fans if you'd like to, or a 240mm rad. I'll talk to you more about that when we get inside the case. We've got our 7 expansion brackets a bit further down, and also our power supply support on the left hand side. You can do a maximum of a 232mm power supply. That bracket does protrude a little bit more, so it does give you a bit more space. We've also got a couple of zip tie points for any I/O that's coming out of your motherboard. So there's that dust filter that I mentioned. We'll run the length of the case and easy to remove from the side. That's got some magnets in there as well, so once it's in place it will stay put. We've got a couple of thumb screws to take off this part of the glass. This is 3mm tempered glass. I'm not quite sure if you can see on the camera, but it has got a 45-degree angle to it. Then that matches the piece on the front as well, so it fits nice and snug together. Inside the case we've got support for an up to EATX motherboard. You've got some nice grommets along the side for your 24-pin connectors, maybe your graphics card ones as well. You can obviously run those up from the bottom if you'd rather. On the bottom of the case we can support a maximum of 3 140mm fans or 420mm rad. Then the right hand side we can support up to 3 120mm fans or 360. You could do 2 140s if you'd prefer. We've also got some more grommets along the top for your maybe EPS 8 pins or any fan connectors that go onto the motherboard. I've taken out 3 thumb screws from the back of the case, and there's also one that I've just undone on the top right. That will actually allow this whole motherboard tray to be taken out. So in the words of Rodney Reynolds, the motherboard tray is removable. Now once that's out, you can actually do another trick with this. So what you can do is that you can then take off this bottom panel with another thumb screw, move this to the top of the case, and then bring this whole motherboard tray and bring it back in further down to allow you some more options for the back. Now if I just lift this up so you can see, we now have a bit of extra space at the top, allowing a 120mm fan. You can't quite fit another one in the bottom, but if you remove this expansion cover, there's a little screw that I've just taken out already. You can take out this little piece here, flip it around, put it back in, and then that gives you the space for another 120mm fan, or you can do the 240 rad that I mentioned. Really cool. We've obviously put a lot of thought into this case. Now when you bring this back down, there are a couple of open holes, so obviously the cables that will then need to come through, but they've also included grommets for that as well, which I'll show you later. Let's talk about maximum dimensions and things that we've got before we go to the back. So we can do a maximum height cooler of 174mm, then a maximum graphics card length of 430mm, so pretty much anything on the market at the moment. Onto the back of the case, got some perforations for any fans that you have on the side of the case, or also where your power supply is going to draw in some air. Well, you can see the PC Master Race Lian Li collaboration. This panel is now on a magnet as well, so you can easily swivel it over. I love the little attention to detail of making sure that that thumb screw can be cleared as well when that goes back. Let's have a look at what we've got on our accessory box. Thank you for your purchase. You've got an included anti-sag bracket. There's some additional little bits for the push pins if you need to replace them if they get worn out. Some anti-vibration pads for any drives that you put into your cages. And you've got a big old bunch of screws. They also include all of the fan screws that we need to populate the case as well, which I think is a really nice touch, especially as obviously the screws with these ones are silver, whereas the majority of ones that come with fans are black. Removing the thumb screw on the back of the case, you can easily pop out these sleds. You've got two of them and you can support either 2.5-inch drives or 3.5-inch drives in this. With all the available options, you've got a total of 5 2.5-inch slots or 3 2.5 and 2 3.5. Now this fan and radiator support you can flip over if you want a bit more space inside of the case. Maybe you're going to use a thick radiator or something like that. The little cable management points, these have got Velcro cable ties on the top. You can also remove them and swap them around, so if you want to put them a bit further up, if you maybe need some more power supply room, you can easily move those, just bring them up out the way. Then lastly we've got our front panel connections, so we've got HD audio, front panel all in one block, USB Type-C and then USB 3, and then a nice little touch again is that they're all white headers to match the case. Very impressed with this so far. I love the features that it's got. Also very rigid, built very well. Even without the side panels on, it's still very sturdy. So good job so far. And now I'm going to put my thermal test system in it so we can get an idea of temps. I'm then going to put some white stuff in it as well so you can see an idea of what you could build with it. But yeah, I'll be back with you with a conclusion and then my overall thoughts. So onto the conclusion for the O11 Vision. I've done my thermal testing already. I've also then put some white parts in, but I got to the point where I thought just well power the system up and go the whole hog so you can see what it would actually look like all built up. I usually just leave my test system in it, but that's nothing special to look at and that's not its intention. I've also had a few people say, why would you put a system like that in a case like this, because they've not watched the video to the point where I've said this is a test system, so they've just assumed that that's the kind of thing you'd build in it, which is obviously not the case. So hopefully something like this will give you a better representation. So let's cover the thermals, then I'll talk to you about my thoughts. I tested this in the default configuration. I also added 2 Corsair fans as an intake and 1 as an exhaust. They're the same ones from my CPU cooler test rig. I add those into cases that don't come with any included, otherwise we test the ones that they come with. They're also set to 1600 RPM with the Noctua and HU12A and then the 5800X3D as well. 1600 RPM all the way through the board, so it's nice and consistent. The only variable is the case. So a high temperature of 86.6 with an ambient of 25.1, resulting in a delta of 61.5. Putting that into the charts for the other cases that I've tested, it does sit as the warmest yet. But obviously the clear point for why is that the top is glass, so there's nowhere for that heat to rise and to escape, so it's all got to be forced out of the rear exhaust. If you're wondering also, the GPU temperature was 77.6 on the hotspot, which was a delta of 51.9. Now Lian Li recommend that you put the intake fans on where your AIO goes, and then also at the bottom, and then exhaust out the back with the 2 120s. Now that will also increase the pressure, which will bring down temps. When I build with this case, I'll look at the temps closer, as my test setup is made to be obviously consistent and something that I could put in every case, whereas this one needs a very specific fan setup that I can't do in all cases, because obviously they differ from one to another. I wouldn't go too mad and put the highest end parts in this. I think it's going to be far too hot. Something that I've got in here will be okay though. If you're wondering about that setup, it is the following. We've got a Ryzen 5 7600X with a B650E Aorus Elite X AX ICE. I've also got a video on that on the channel if you want to check it out. I've got the Gigabyte 4070 Aero. The storage is the Solidigm P44 Pro 1TB. Then we've got RAM from Kingbank, which is 2 16GB sticks running at 7200 megatransfers per second. Additionally, we've got the NZXT Kraken 360 with the Lian Li T120 unifans, they're reverse fans. That's all powered by the Thermaltake Snow 1200 watt power supply. Quick disclaimer before people rush to the comments, this system isn't meant to match in spec, it's just the white parts that I had on hand. I needed a processor to be able to make this thing boot. 7600X was the closest one that I could find. You could obviously go for a 7800X3D, that would pair with the 4070 a little bit better. And then the power, 1200 watts, certainly overkill. I do like to overspec, but damn, it's certainly not needed for this kind of system. The building experience with this case has been one of the best that I've had. Being able to remove this top glass panel makes it really easy to work on, especially for getting into your headers and things like that. Obviously normal cases have this bar that goes across when they support fans or radiators in the top, so not having that does really make a lot of difference when it goes to building. As you can see, I've also got the Lazy Susan on this, so I can spin it around. The power button at the front lights up in white, which is a nice little detail. At the back of the system, bear in mind this is an example, so I've not spent time doing cable management as it's going to be taken apart after this video, but there are a couple of things I'd like to mention. First of all, the Unifan controller fits really well in the cable management clip. I don't know if that was intentional, but it just sits really well in there. I've also then put the fan control onto the Kraken as it's got PWM control as a little daisy chain. Also the thumb screw at the back that I mentioned at the start, you can just press that down and then it will release the frame for the radiator and fan mounts. Makes it really easy to put everything in after. You can also do the same for the bottom fans as well. If you're going to put any cables at the bottom of the case, there is a little gap at the bottom that you can actually see through. So just make sure you don't put any cables down there, especially black ones, because they'll stand out against the white. I also took out the hard drive cages, but you can use those to put any cables in. Tuck them in can be quite handy. Nice to see lots of grommets on this case. I mentioned that you do get the additional ones when you put the motherboard in the lower position. Mine didn't seem to include any, which is apparently a thing with some of the boxes, but you can request them from Lian Li for free if they are missing. The price for this case I think is okay. Could be a little bit cheaper. The Fantex MV5 does come to mind. That also doesn't include any fans, but is also very well built and has a lot of options. But that is only £95, so it does make me think that this one could come down a little bit. Overall though, I think it's a really nice case. Just be careful with what you're going to do in terms of the parts, because the heat can increase quite drastically if you're not careful. Make sure you fill up the fan slots as well, but like I've done here, you can get a nice mix of performance and looks. So I'll leave the links for these in the description box below. Let me know what else you'd like to see with this. I'm hoping to get a Lian Li AIO to go with it as well, which would look really nice, especially with the Unifans. So I think I've covered everything that I want to in this video. If there's anything else you want to know that I haven't covered, of course leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you. Get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss any future videos. I've got some really nice stuff coming up. Of course, thanks to Lian Li and Overclockers UK for setting this out for me to look at. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.